The following is a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live Network, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. Hollywood Redefined. From Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is Black Hollywood Live, the Black Tea Party, featuring weekly discussions on political news and current affairs. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood Redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host of Black Hollywood Live, the Black Tea Party.
Song, yes, song. This is our song. Yeah. I feel like we don't hear it as much as we should. Anyway, time to start the show. Thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of Black Tea Party. I'm your host, Stacy Ike, and I'm joined with my lovely co-host today. What's up, Mike?
Hey, guys. Hey.
What's up, what's up? And, of course, we have our favorite Don Nash. He's Skyping in with us today. How you doing, Don?
I am good. I wish I was there with y'all. I really do.
Yeah, you know, I always get sad when you're not sitting here next to us with that energy and, you know, the argumentativeness that comes with the three of us. Yes, when we all get together. And we are missing Rome today, but we are sending him all of our love. And I'm sure he will have comments on Twitter, so make sure you keep in touch with him. You can keep in touch with me during the show at One Take Stace if you want to tweet us. And where can they keep in touch with you, Mike?
I'm at Twitter at Michael Teemant. Just read it on the screen. And MichaelTeemant.com.
Awesome. And what about you, Don?
Well, you can reach me at Don's Daily Dose, or you can send a message to me in Uruguay, as Mike says on Instagram.
That is so funny. Loving the glasses, Don.
It's sent by Pigeon. What'd you say there, Stacey?
Loving the glasses.
Are you really?
Loving the glasses. Real swaggy. Stacey,
I feel a little intellectual.
Yes. And we'll need that for today's show because we have a lot of crazy topics to talk about. So let's get started with our first topic. We are going to jump right into the Jada Pinkett Smith article that came out that Don actually sent me and said, what do you think about this? So I love to share it with you guys and discuss with my favorite friends here. So the title of the article was called The War on Men Through the Degradation of Women. Yes. Very intense title as is. And I thought it was so interesting because I think her overall topic or feeling was basically that men don't know who they are without a woman by their side, in a sense.
That's ridiculous.
Which, okay, Mike, give me a second. Let me say my piece, y'all. You know, no, I'm kidding. And basically, there's an ego that is never fulfilled unless there's a woman kind of, and not even necessarily in a what's the word? Positive way. Because there's a lot of times that people say, you know, behind every man is a great woman, that kind of thing. I don't think that's what she meant. I think that she meant that the more a guy can degrade a woman or put her in her place or whatever the case is, the more he feels that he's built up or whatever the case is. And I've seen that positive. I feel like,
so wait,
do you not see that?
Only through like a guy oppressing her does he make himself great?
Not only, but in some cases, yeah. Depending on who you're talking to.
Well, I've seen it, but that's just abuse. That's not anything new, and you shouldn't let someone do that to you.
Yeah, but she thinks it's some type of, some type of warrior culture mentality.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, the man is out trying to prove himself by getting stuff, and the stuff that he's able to buy her or things he's able to do for her is actually the price he's just got to pay. He's willing to pay it, and she's for sale for it. Yeah. And so, but what she interestingly enough is saying is that a woman has to give something to a man so that a man could realize his destiny and his purpose and his substance. And if that woman has been degraded or degraded in such a way, then she's not going to be able to pour that into him. She's not going to be able to help him soar and build himself. And as a result, she's lost, he's lost, and the family's lost. Very interesting take.
I think it's a very interesting take because there are a lot of times, if you think of just modern day traditions or whatever, where you're like, oh, baby, look, I'm engaged. Look at my ring. Ooh, let me see how big your ring is. You know what I mean? That somebody bought that for you, which was the guy, you know. Yeah. And let's say all the guys are on the golf course or wherever they are, the basketball court or wherever you guys hang out, Buffalo Wild Wings, I don't know. One of those, and they're like, "Oh man, what's the ring that you bought her? Oh, let me see. I don't know if you guys showed each other pictures, but it is. But it plays a huge part into this article, a huge part.
I agree with half of it. Like I'm reading it right now from the Facebook, and I can agree with half of it, and then half of it's baloney hippie stuff. But the half I believe with, like, you can't reach your full potential with whoever your partner is, man or woman, unless they're on the same team as you and you treat them as an equal. You guys can't succeed. I agree with that part.
Okay.
Yeah. That's going to be my thing now. Just knocking over water. All right.
So what did you think about the part that was hippie baloney?
You don't need somebody there in order to succeed. There's plenty of single people who have done it without somebody next to them. Mm-hmm. So I think some of it's like, I don't know. It feels like a controversy to try to. This family, though, I don't take anything they say that seriously just because of the things they tweet and choose to say on a usual basis. But I do agree that you shouldn't degrade people at all. Like, I'm on board with that.
Right.
Like, yeah, you shouldn't degrade your woman or man.
Right.
Yeah,
and
but
you should treat people right.
And she didn't say this, so I don't want to project any of my stuff on her. But I think there is a sense in which women, or a certain subculture of women, because I'm recognizing that we got a whole lot of subcultures, especially in the Black community. There are women that actually don't find themselves, that they don't think it's disrespectful or degrading to be called a bitch or a hoe.
Hell no.
They don't think that. They actually bask in the fact that they're regarded that way. Somehow in this culture, that's some type of badge of honor.
Absolutely not.
I don't know what. That's such a minority, though.
I don't care. Culture. I'm sorry. Let's talk womanhood. Let's not talk black, white, yellow, or green. That is disrespectful. And there are a lot of my friends. Oh my gosh, I have this argument with a friend once every couple of weeks who says, "Hey, my girl," and then she calls me the B word or whatever, and she thinks that's cool because we're friends. And I usually make a little stale face, and she'll be like, "I can't believe you're not okay with me saying that, but you're okay with saying other things." You know, there's certain things that I'll say and being humorous, and she'll be like, "So you can say that, but you can't say the B word," and I'm like, I don't know what it is. I know there's a lot of words that, as women, we're taking back. I don't want that one. There's a couple other words that I've done a couple different cool seminars, and I've been in a lot of those women. We're taking those harsh words back, and some of them I don't want. I don't want most of them. So I don't feel like I need to reclaim that. I don't want it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
I don't know. That's just me.
Well, it's interesting. The hippie thing, I wouldn't have thought hippie, Mike.
Right.
Maybe because I know them a little bit from talking to people / reading about them and stuff. That's where I'm coming from with that, by the way. It's not like a...
And I get you, because when I read that article, I read it twice, and I thought, who is she talking to?
Right. Very interesting, right?
Sometimes, and I want to be careful when I say this, but sometimes we can wax so eloquent that nobody understands what the heck you're saying anyway. And I think she's trying to say something, but I think that whatever it is she's really trying to say in this article, she never really said. Mm-hmm. So it leaves us up to try to figure it out. And I think that her target was probably a demographic that she should have begun to speak their language, and maybe it would have resonated on a different level.
Interesting.
Maybe.
Well, if you guys check out the article, what website was it on, Dawn? Do you remember?
You know what? Somebody sent me the link, but I saw it on. I don't want to, plug anybody who's not sponsoring our show.
Ah, love that. That's funny. That's funny. Well, type in Jada Pinkett Smith.
But I mean, if you Google it, you'll find it because it's out there in circulation. And just Jada Pinkett Smith, The War on Men.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that said, we're going to move on. But before we do, I just want to make a quick announcement. If you are hiring and not sure where to find the best candidates, as a business owner, I can only tell you that your company is as good as the people that you hire. So I can also tell you that you're posting a job in one place isn't enough to find quality candidates. But when you're short-staffed and there's no time to deal with a dozen of different job sites, until now. Thanks to ZipRecruiter.com, I can post up to 100 plus job sites with one single click and have the highest possible chance of finding the perfect candidate. Just post once, and within 24 hours, watch your candidates grow into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. ZipRecruiter has been using this for over 300,000 businesses, and you can try it right now for free, which is my favorite word. So getting the right people for your company is so important. Try ZipRecruiter and get your perfect candidate before everybody else takes them. Go to ZipRecruiter.com right now for free /podcast. Make sure that's ZipRecruiter.com /podcast. And in case you didn't get that, ZipRecruiter.com /podcast. And make sure you find that perfect candidate. love that. So just have to make sure
If I
got
had
that
a
out
business,
there.
I would totally sign up for that.
I would too. I actually love when their ads come up because I'm like, I need to not only get a business, but I need some right people working for me. So that's all I'm saying. So love that. With that, we're going to go ahead and roll into our next topic. I think we should go the Ben Carson route because I think that Mike's a little high strung about it.
That guy's an idiot.
He's not an idiot.
He's
Okay,
a total moron.
let me transition this into it. So there was an article with Ben Carson, who is how do I define his profession? I know he's a huge doctor, but does he
He's
do
not
that?
he was a surgeon.
Oh,
He was a
he's a
neurosurgeon,
surgeon.
which,
Yes.
by the way, isn't the same as a doctor, so it doesn't prove how smart you are.
And he's probably got his eyes on the
He has
president.
good, hand skills.
Yeah, I read his book when I was 11 because my parents thought that would be cool. So I remember that book.
Do you regret that?
No, I never regret that. It was very interesting. It was called like Gifted Hands or something awesome like that. So anyway,
was a
I read
good
his
surgeon.
book. Yeah,
He
he's
was
a good surgeon. And he came out with an article, or he contributed to an article about hip hop being a negative influence on community and being a I don't know how to say. I mean, I don't think he's the only target necessarily, but he was saying it's a huge influence on why community is so divided. And when I was tagged in this post, I thought, okay, let's see. The title kind of got me already. But the person who wrote the article was very disheartened by it, did not agree with Ben Carson at all, thought that he was totally copping out and using a conservative route to say, okay, yeah, hip hop is the reason, blah, 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 because he said it's an easy out for conservatives. So what did you guys think about the article? Not Mike, Don. Let's go Don first. Let's go Don first.
I get where he's going, but this dude just does not know how to talk. I mean,
so you're talking about the person who wrote the article?
Well, no, I'm actually talking about Ben Carson.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Ben Carson actually did an interview on Easter Sunday, which is when this whole thing really stirred out.
Okay.
It kind of spilled. And his statement was that hip hop had nothing to do with Jesus Christ. And
He's right about that.
Yeah, and I think
Sure.
there's a reasonable conversation to have around that, but yet you have other things where in the hip hop world and music repertoire that has actually talked about Jesus. I mean, even Kanye West, although I don't know he's Christian, says Jesus walks.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I thought that was
Jesus.
a very stupid plug that the writer wrote. I mean, not stupid, but it was like, oh, there's one song that has Jesus walks. I'm like, it's in the title. So what?
Yeah, but at the same time, you can't be a political individual and make statements that are not actually true. So I think while there is a go through and a thing that, hip hop may seem to be morally compromised, I don't know if you can say it has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. Somebody thinks it's their gift.
Mm-hmm.
Considering most of the rappers say thank you, Jesus, when they get their awards, I don't think that they're not Christian, first of all. Most of them are Christian. Second of all,
I'm sorry.
It's just okay. This is the annoying thing to me. It's that same thing as we want to look at a culture and say this is the thing that's causing that. They do it. The white person equivalent of this is that violent video games cause violence, and it's proven completely false. We keep trying to attach
completely
these
false.
Yeah, it just happens that because actually, since violent video games and they get more and more violent, violence is going down worldwide.
Okay.
So it makes no sense that violent video games is causing violence. How about violence is around? We get more violence on television, but let's bring it back to hip hop. The same thing happened with jazz music. The same thing happened with rock and roll, and now they're demonizing. Hip hop because it's an easy target. Hip hop talks about the culture of being black a lot of times from urban and inner cities areas, and that's a reflection of the culture. I would not say Nas is glorifying anything in Illmatic.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate where you're coming from, but I do agree with the fact that it's an easy target in the sense it's like, oh, let's go to hip hop, and now let's go to this, let's go to that, whatever. Because there's never going to be one thing that is quote unquote breaking up a community or not influencing a community. Yeah. But it would be very irresponsible of me to disregard the fact that music and culture and pop culture have an influence on people. That would be crazy to say that it would be crazy to say that somebody who watches violent video games every day and plays one every other day and is never influenced by that. I don't know what could come of it. Maybe they'll never do anything, but of course there is an influence, just like hip hop.
Okay, but there's more killings every year on the football field with kids than there are shootings at schools.
I understand that.
And we're cool with that. And actually, football has long-term shown effects of if they get a lot of concussions, there is violent behavior, and we're cool with that. But the thing with they're pressing buttons and they're seeing violence, which isn't real violence. That's also what they found. They found there isn't real violence. That these kids, the reason kids can play those games and be okay is because it's not real to them.
But Michael, do you not hear that you are laying out examples of sports and entertainment, and we could probably go on as to how culturally we have played into the whole violent thing?
Exactly.
Well, why is it that we have a bent?
Because humans are violent. We're violent people. Do you not look at the world? I mean, look at Israel, Gaza. Those are two of the most religious
violence
places.
is also intensified. I know that we see a decline in terms of some of our statistics, but violence has intensified.
No, it hasn't. Not at all. Not one bit, unless you're talking like war is the only place where violence is intensified, and that's because of our weapons.
Well, I think that we become desensitized to violent issues. I think that even when we look at entertainment, we have violent content that we're entertained by at home on our sofas and our beds. We're entertained by it in video games, and now we're entertained by it in music. So it's around us all the time. So it's got to shape.
It's always been around all the time is my answer.
Say it again?
It's always been around all the time.
I don't think it has been around the way that it has now. We've got it on the small screen, we've got it on the big screen, and we've got all those screens in our purse, in our backpacks, in our briefcases, and even in our cars. So we're like inundated with these images.
The thing is, I see where Mike has come from, that it's been around for a long time, but I also very much agree with Don's point that technology changes the way we see things. And we have to agree that technology, I mean, obviously is amazing thus far and has expanded the way we see things. How many times I see it. I mean, I shouldn't have been able to even access that ISIS video. That's all I'm saying. I should not have been able to.
And that's some of the pluses. See, that's actually my point right there. My point is right now we see things we never saw. They just were stories before. We actually can see drone strikes sometimes. Those videos get leaked. We see ISIS out there doing their thing because now it's easier for them to do it. So we're seeing all this, and despite the statistics, it looks like it's a much more violent world than it is, and it's not. It's just not, but to
it's just
us,
more visible.
Now we have, exactly. You used to only get an hour of news a night. And in that hour, they might go over a war that's happening far away, and they would go over 3 or 4 big stories, and that was your world news. Everything else was local.
Yeah, but they loop that news over and over again.
But now they do. I'm saying now they do. And now we get, like, never before would, I mean, we're going to get to it in a minute, is the Walter Scott thing. That never would have been possible ever in a million years before the internet, right?
Yeah, but I just disagree that music, entertainment does not shape culture.
Yeah,
I think that it does shape culture. You can go across the globe to a third world country and they know about a lot of the pop culture.
Then explain why everything's going down. Sexual assaults are going down, violence is going down, and
Michael,
you guys want to talk about how the culture is getting more violent, and it's not. That's kind of my point.
But Michael, I don't even know how you can even fix your lips to say that. And we are living in a world where it's not that peaceful, man.
Exactly.
It's not that peaceful.
Going down.
It's
Why
better
are
than
we
it's
happy?
ever been.
We got folk that are flying planes in the buildings. We got people blowing up people, chopping heads off.
And yet it used to be worse. We used to spread Agent Orange
abroad for that.
We used to spray Agent Orange, killed tens of thousands, and not only maimed and retarded many children over in Vietnam. Don't tell me it's not. It's less violent than it used to be. In fact, that we use less chemical weapons than we used to. We like all across the board in every statistic. That's the fact. And the thing that here's the thing that annoys me is everyone wants to participate, and then when. Okay, where do I even go with this? My point is that is art. Do we reflect art, or is art reflecting society? And I say both.
I agree.
So you can't get after artists for talking about the things that they see in their everyday. When Tupac and Nas, they're talking about that, that's their lives. You want to pretend their lives don't exist?
This is just me. I think there's a responsibility as an artist as to what you bring to the table and what you project and what you put on the canvas of the imagination of your viewing audience.
I agree.
It's just me.
I agree because a lot of these artists, some of them, they know that their age bracket is 12 to 17 or whatever. Like certain people know that I'm not listening to them, yet they'll make music about things that only 35-year-olds should be talking about.
Are they 35?
Whatever. Well, no, they're not. And that's some of them. Some
that's
of them
a different thing.
Like,
are you talking about Justin Bieber?
No, I'm talking about like the Rihannas of the world who know that her fan base. Now, I'm not going to be able to tell Rihanna
it's not. It's a parenting issue.
Let Stacy finish her thought.
It's not just a parenting issue. I remember being very uncomfortable watching the iHeartRadio Awards and seeing Rihanna's perform, bitch better have my money. Why is that appropriate for the, I understand iHeartRadio is not just for kids, but do that at Billboard. I'm sorry, like do it somewhere else that it's appropriate. I just feel like it would be crazy to say that music doesn't influence.
I've been saying this for a long time, guys. It's our world is it's always been in a constant state of advancement. Yes. And right now we're in one of the most major technological revolutions of the past millennium.
Seriously.
And we're in a transitional period in that there's never ever been a time before where 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds have access to all the information at once. They don't have a filter on what they're accessing. They don't have a filter on what they really want to access. So they're getting a lot of information that honestly is probably not the best for them, but society is not built in a way that can kind of teach them about that before they're finding out about it.
No, that's a parent's job. That's my point. A parent's job is to do that. But there's been Playboy as long as there's been the internet with the nudity. And yet parents seem to be able to do that right. Now, expose your kids to the wrong things. You don't watch your kids, that's fine. There are filters. There are ways you can control your kids.
Here's another comparison that I'm going to show you, though, right now.
Thank God I don't have kids.
Yeah, well...
Sorry.
The reason parents could control kids easier when they were before was because they could control what they were seeing to a point and control what they had access to a point. The reason the government could control us easier before was because they had more control over what we were seeing, and they had, like, usually, like, if there's a murder in a state, you know, you might hear about it, but if there's a murder in Nebraska and you live in North Carolina, you're probably not going to hear about it.
True.
Okay? Nowadays, you know, there might be less violence, but the violence that is around is now from across the entire country. You're pulling sources from Hawaii, you're pulling murders from New York, you're pulling murders from Florida, and everywhere across the country they're hearing about it, where 20 years ago you wouldn't hear about those murders.
You're saying that like a bad thing.
Well, I'm saying it like the world has not changed as much as we think in these murders and in crime and things like that. I'm just saying there's more access to the news agencies and there's more access to promote the information they want to promote. Because I guarantee you, there's a lot of terrible things happening right now that you don't even know about because we're focusing on one shooting or something like that.
Right.
Agreed.
And I think with what you're saying about parents, I understand that parents have a huge responsibility to shelter their kids and that kind of thing. But with Stephen's point, there was a time that it was a lot easier for my parents to be like, we have basic TV and you only have 5 channels and I know every single one of them. If there's cable in my house, my 12-year-old sister can watch whatever she wants. It's not about like governing or not. They're working. No, they have working parents. It's not just that. It's not just that, Mike.
Then why are you having kids? Why are people who aren't ready to have children having children? I don't have time to monitor my kids. Then you probably don't have time to monitor
insanity.
children.
That's insanity. You're telling parents they basically can't leave the house. They can't work. They can't do anything that makes them happy.
I have a coworker. He has a kid who's 12. He gives the kid a cell phone and then he gets mad when he finds things he doesn't want on that cell phone.
Oh,
don't give the kids a cell phone. They don't need a cell phone.
Come on.
My child doesn't need a cell phone.
Michael,
that's crazy.
Can I get personal here for a second?
Mike, that's crazy.
And I don't want this to come off the wrong way.
Okay.
This is going to be fairly personal. I don't want to offend you. I just want to use it as an example.
Okay.
All right. You had a dog that was very big for your apartment.
Oh, she ran away.
She ran away, and she ran away because the apartment was too small and you weren't around enough to take her out. And
that's not what happened.
That's not what happened? Oh, well.
She had anxiety. But
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you just got another dog.
Uh-huh.
It's the same concept, is that people, you know, they might think they understand something, and they might think that they're perfect for parents, and then they have a kid. They can't just get rid of the kid once they have the kid and realize they're not great parents.
I understand, and there was a lot that went into Layla leaving that also happened. My other dog was kind of taken from me in a family situation, and I was supposed to deal with that, and that's really what happened. But besides that, you're right. Maybe I shouldn't have another dog, but it's still not a child. And I don't have to worry about getting my dog a cell phone. If you don't want, I don't understand this whole.
But Mike, you're saying
everyone's
stuff
supposed
that
to
aren't
parenting.
No. What about the village that raised a child?
Is
that crazy? A village that raised a child, is that not something anybody believes in but me?
I'm with you, Stacy, and I think we've gotten away from the whole idea that it takes a village to raise a kid. But to Michael's point, I think, you know, for example, I gave all of my kids a cell phone for a reason. And I remember the deciding factor was, if something happens at school, I want to be able to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? Because as a parent, I begin to be concerned when there were shootings at schools and lockdowns and you name it, and I wasn't going to be able to communicate with my kids. So it became necessary for them to have the phone. Well, now, my motive for giving you the phone was so I could communicate with you, but now someone's going to send you something on that phone from across the room.
Which he can't control as a parent. He
I
just has to
understand.
figure out a way to deal with it when it happens.
Now, when you come home, what I really
phone.
want to do is to have a dialogue with you where you feel comfortable enough to tell me what you've been exposed to that day. But listen, I'm a very good dad, and I got to tell you, sometimes I have to pry it out of them, and many times I don't get it at all because it's another world. And the truth is, they will spend more time with other people's children
Than
who
you,
lack moral
exactly.
values, who lack any type of sense,
Agreed.
than they will spend with me at home.
Agree, and that's what I'm saying, Mike. You can't say
So-
what kind of parents are you going
So
to try to be?
you're
You're
now
only
the executive producer of iHeartRadio's. Why not watch it the next year, and that way they don't get ratings in those.
I understand that, but that was just my personal topic, like my personal. How do I say? I guess irritation with the
No, fair
awards.
enough.
But what I'm saying, I can't apply that to every parent. Maybe they didn't know she was performing. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Maybe some parents care, some parents don't care. But what I'm saying is, back to your point about a parent should be able to understand their kid and they should be able to govern them. Blah blah blah. I have spent way more time with other people than my parents in my entire life. I went to college for 4 years out of state. I went to high school and I didn't come home till 6, and then I got up at 7 a.m. We remember high school. Okay, so
I left at 5 a.m. Didn't get home till 9 p.m. at night sometimes.
Okay, so why are you're putting it on parents as if they're the only people around, and it's like there's teachers involved, there's other people's parents,
Sure.
there's other things that come into this point where he's saying that there's a
To lock
culture
your
that
kid in a
influences
room?
people.
Like, I don't know what you want to do.
Well,
Like,
that's
do
what
you
I'm
think
saying
you're
about-
that damaged from seeing things growing up?
Culture
That's not what I'm
raises
saying.
culture.
Everyone is.
It raises your children to a large degree.
Oh my gosh,
You
yes.
can pray, you can fast, you can set up a burnt offering, you can lock them up when they come home. When you send them off to school, they're going to be exposed to how many other.
And yet I see article after article. Like, that's what I think. I think you guys are looking at the one angle. I'm looking at the other side where I see article after article saying, don't bash people because they're gay or trans. Don't bash people because they're different. Those are all over the internet as well, and we're completely ignoring that. Like, the only thing being thrown at these kids are songs with bitches and hoes in them, and that's not the case.
No.
don't
What
think
I
it's the
think what
only
we're
thing.
speaking to is just the thing that actually gives resistance to people being able to live better lives. I'm not going to, downgrade any of those things. There are a lot of positive things that are out there as well. Unfortunately, we don't celebrate, we don't get a lot of that as much as we get the negative influence.
And I'm
Like
always-
Stacy, I mean, when Rihanna, and I get it, Rihanna never signed up to be a role model.
Right. I agree. I understand that. Yeah, I do.
take her success and say she should now be a role model.
Right.
She would probably do some very nice things because someone in her camp told her she should be a role model, but that's not who she is.
Right.
So when she organically gets up and expresses herself before a room full of 13,000 kids watching her, or logging on or downloading her music,
Right.
I know. That's just a difference in moral value,
Yeah.
which, to Ben Carson's point, is that hip hop ain't got nothing to do with Jesus because he think that Jesus won't let these people do that kind of stuff.
What about Christian hip hop?
And just let me go circle back around to Ben Carson, because I want to say something that, as a black man, somebody may think I should be ashamed of saying, but I think that there are certain people of color in the political world that actually believe that they get a foot in with the white constituents if they are able to say something critical about the black people. And I think that when he began to start talking about hip hop, he was talking about people of his color, but it was to create a divide so that he could be embraced by his counterparts.
It is very interesting that you say that because Mike wrote the exact same thing on Facebook, which I'm not saying I didn't even see that. I thought, he's a devout Christian man, very conservative guy. It doesn't sound that crazy for him to say that.
I'm going to say that he's crazy because I think that there is a cry for moral value in our culture.
Okay.
I think there's a cry and a desperate cry for it.
Okay.
I do get him speaking to that. But I think that when he goes in for this subculture, he's speaking to a subculture that for the most part is identified with people of color.
I have to say something to that, though, too. I say that, yes, there are definitely examples of that. But you need to examine the argument, and I am not educated enough on this argument in particular, but just on what you had said, Don, you need to examine the argument they're making before you clump it in with they're saying it just to get white people on their side or to get anyone on their side, because there are instances of that, especially in the Republican Party. I mean, I'll tell you that right now. And I grew up fairly conservative. I'm from North Carolina. I'm not very conservative anymore, but you see that growing up. But I also want to say that there are decisions people make that are against a certain culture because people have promoted that as a culture when it's not really a culture. There are certain groups that believe things that are completely blown out of proportion, are completely extreme to a degree of hating other people. Like, I'm not going to bring up a perfect example, but it's just because I don't want to get flamed out for anything like that. I'm not willing to say that.
Come on, set the fire to the flame.
I'm not going to set the fire.
Come on.
I'm just saying.
This is Black Tea Party.
Are you talking about American Idol? I agree.
Yeah, American Idol. I'm just saying that some people like to throw the card around that, because he doesn't agree with this vision that we have as a people, he's wrong and he's betraying us. When that's not true, maybe you should be listening to that.
Well, Steven, this is where I get off board with that, is he's singling out hip-hop as if rock doesn't have it, as if country doesn't have a degree of it. And that was my real argument.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all on that.
Yeah. I just want to be clear there.
And that's my thing. You know, and I don't want to sound like I know black people, Steven, when I'm saying this, but there's a certain tap dance that some of us do, and we will tap dance on a razor blade and hula hoop in a Cheerio to get the endorsement of our counterparts.
Wait, I'm not hula hooping in no Cheerio.
Well, I know, because you're not that kind of person, but I'm saying, but as a man of color, sometimes you can just hear the manipulation. And to be perfectly honest, there are times when I sit in black circles and we'll say something like, now, why would that person get on television and say that? It's almost like there's a conversation you wish that they would have amongst black people, but they decide to take that conversation, and they know that there's kind of an inner working within the community. There's a tussle and a dynamic to try to find our identity or our comfort zone with something. And before you know it, it's thrown out before a political zone, and it's thrown out in such a way that I just don't think this guy has the right motives.
Intention. I think it's really interesting because black culture is just so like interweaved in things that I didn't even realize. Like, I feel like to be honest, black culture goes from like Tim's and Justin Timberlake to like, somewhere around the Kardashians, and then up until then you throw Ludacris in there, but then you can still. Culture? I'm saying the influence of black culture is very evident in a lot of different cultures, and it's weaved in a lot of different cultures. So I think it's just very funny because it's also very easy to attack it. I just don't think it's like, I personally don't like using the term black culture or white culture or Hispanic culture or anything like that. I think literally at this point in our country, it's American culture at this point. And it's kind of worldly culture because the world has been brought together by the internet, has been brought together by the digital age. So to say black culture is in turn slowly becoming racist because anything you kind of associate with that word can be considered stereotypical. And that's the same with Mexican, that's the same with any culture that you try to poke at. Okay.
Steven, I love that point of view.
I was going to say.
100%, totally. And I wish that we could all just be Americans. But the truth is that when you're walking in shoes that are not white American shoes, then you are often identified by circumstance, or sometimes blatantly identified as being a part of a particular culture that classifies you.
Right. And I think that's sad.
I think that when we come to these conversations, it becomes difficult to not speak to it because you're speaking contextually. So I think the goal should be that we're just all Americans. I love that idea. I wish that I was just respected because I exist and not because of the color of my skin. I think the most interesting thing about the state of the world right now is that people always used to say that, it's human nature to hate people that are different. It's human nature to not like somebody who's different than you because humans throughout history have teamed up against people like that. I think that the ironic thing is when we're in a time where most of the kids aren't getting the best parenting, we have a generation that is almost kind of unsupervised and growing up, yet they're actually the first most accepting generation of everyone.
Yeah. I can go with that. I can go with
it too. I think it's great.
I think just the evolution of everything is slower than we'd like it to be. I know for sure. Like, I'm with Don.
Except technology. What's too freaking fast?
No, that's my point. Technology goes faster than we can actually, like, even keep up.
We're just catching up right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not trying to get on no more social media sites. That's all I'm saying. I'm
Periscope.
Yeah, I heard about it. I'm like, I'm over it. We're doing too much. We're way too exposed. Every single thing about our life is out there. And even if you don't want it to, you have no choice. So you don't. I'm
thinking of getting rid of my cell phone. I'm not even kidding.
I've got so many gadgets. I feel like I'm hot wired every time I step out.
Yeah,
right?
it's crazy. And to Steven's point, I definitely understand what he means in terms of, I hate, every time we get on the show and we talked about subcultures a couple weeks ago, and I get very irritated because I'm like, why does it have to be this? Why can't we just all be people? Blah blah. And I definitely don't want to refrain and what's the word? Narrow it down to black culture necessarily, but when you see the forefront of a lot of different innovative things and they are quote unquote black people, I mean, I'm giving like Kanye and Jay-Z a moment right now. That's when it gets to the black culture thing, and it depends on what the music is about or what the clothes represent or whatever, or whose lifestyle brought it to life. I mean, that's kind of why we go that way. But if we can roll into the all-American moment, let's do it. It's going to take a while. Maybe Periscope will get us there. Who knows?
It's just culture is no longer divided by skin color.
Yeah.
That's not really what America is. Culture is now divided by consumerism and your income. And unfortunately, that's just the divide that has been created through years of our infrastructure or our community and our technology evolving and our infrastructure not.
I think
but because the infrastructure is not evolving, then you have to look at who's going to fall at the bottom of those totem poles, and that's not going to be white America for the most part.
Right.
It's more and more.
Yeah.
And then you kind of come all the way back around to the same thing. And again, I'm not disagreeing with you, Stephen. I agree with you. I want what you want, but the reality fleshes out in a black community or Hispanic community very differently.
Yeah.
And it fleshes out to, you're not giving the education to the people who need the education. You're not providing the same level of education to the low-income families, and you're charging them for college. You're charging everyone for college, and you're preventing people from moving forward with their studies.
And that you becomes who?
Everyone. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's slowly becoming I hammer it all the time. It's slowly becoming more of a socioeconomic class system instead of a cultural system where it's like, oh, this is black culture, this is white. Soon, more and more it's becoming, this is poor, this is rich. I feel like that's where everything's pushed toward, too.
I mean, I understand, and I definitely see it more, but I won't exclude the fact that black and white culture still is something. It's still evident. It's still a conversation.
I'm saying it's slowly becoming.
We're slowly just kind of...
Right.
In LA, we have a kind of different...
we haven't talked about Mr. Scott, the gentleman who lost his life just a week ago. They'll be burying him on tomorrow. Indicative of the way some parts of white America still sees black America, and I may be premature in just throwing that out there, but I think it's indicative of that reality.
I don't think it's premature. I think we can jump right into it. If you guys haven't seen, there was
another one.
I don't like when we started like that. There was a shooting this week, and it involved a man named Walter Scott. And the cop, what's his name? What was the cop's name? Was it Dar?
No, I can't remember his name.
Can't remember the cop's name.
Because there was the sheriff, too.
Yes, he's going to pull up the information of the cop. But, yeah, so we see there was a shooting with a white cop and a black man, and we've circled around this conversation before. Yeah, we've circled around this conversation before. There's been definitely different reasons. I think this one was just an interesting way to look at it because it was videotaped, pretty much the whole way through. A lot of times we get the beginning and the middle or mostly the end, but this time I think I saw everything, and I had a lot of questions raised, and this is really why I wanted Don in the studio. But thank God you're here on Skype, because why did he run? Why was he running? I didn't get it.
$18,000 in child support.
The explanation is that he was running away from the taser.
Okay, but I didn't see, I tried to piece every video I was given together, and I saw the taser in exchange, but I didn't see it used on him.
Either of you guys? The dash cam video?
Yes, when he came up to him and walked. Yeah, I did.
So the story goes, I saw a later version of it, so there were facts that came out. And one of the things, and it looks like that was probably the thing, is he had a warrant because he owed $18,000 in child support. So that looks like the motivation for him running.
Michael, I have to tell you, that bothers me beyond.
It bothered me a little bit
Because
too.
the guy would have got out the car and darted down the street, or probably took him on a high-speed chase, but they had an interaction. And then he runs because he remembered he has a warrant?
Yeah, it was weird.
It was kind of an interaction, man. It was not enough of one that cop is just a piece of garbage, human garbage.
Yes.
So let's start there. Let's start with the fact I don't give a shit if he owes $18,000 or $500,000. He shouldn't have been shot dead. For whatever the fuck happened. I don't even care what happened. That's how I don't care if he threw a punch. No one should shoot anybody over that. And this is a systematic thing where we're seeing more and more uneducated cops. Not educated cops. These are all GED and high school diploma cops that are going around doing this thing. It's a blue-collar job where people do it they're no longer in the communities. We've talked about that before. They used to be the cops had to live in the communities. Mm-hmm. You know why? That way, I wasn't going to shoot you, Stacy, because you're my neighbor. You're not just some person I go to work and deal with.
Right. I understand that, but I think if we rewind a little bit before the shooting, my issue was, just like Don said, the interaction didn't seem peaceful. I heard him say, get out your registration and license, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, okay, I'll be right back, sir, whatever. And then he got out the car and the cop said, get back in the car. He closed the door and was like, crap, that was stupid. And I'm thinking, okay, the cop's still doing whatever he's doing. And then he starts running. So it just was that moment where I was like, on both parts, I feel like Walter Scott did not need to run because the cop didn't even bring up his warrant. Hold on, the cop didn't even bring up his warrants yet at that point. Yeah. So he could have been like, hey, so I have a warrant, blah, 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 okay, or whatever. And then for the cop to start shooting, it's like, what did he do? Like,
that's my point. That's my point
but
more than
it just was crazy. Like, I'm just so
the way he casually tossed a taser on him. Yeah, that pissed me off so much. I was so furious when it was so casual, and I don't know what that other cop, how he didn't see that. And instead, I think that he kind of saw it and just didn't say anything because they didn't understand someone was filming them. Thank God for video camera phones.
Yeah, that was crazy. And
I think we have to just realize that when a black man encounters a white cop, there are two conversations that are going on in their heads before they actually exchange words.
Walter Scott was 55 years old. I mean, dang, he's not throwing you a punch, man. What the heck?
He's not throwing you a punch, and he's not hustling you, and he
he had a ball cap on.
He gonna get winded. He gonna get winded.
He didn't run that fast.
Like, I didn't even understand. Like, why didn't he just say, okay, so let's fast forward or rewind or get back to this part. So let's say Walter Scott takes off, he starts running. What would you have suggested? Because sometimes
you have his car. What else do you need? You have his car. What's he gonna do?
Okay, but
you have his car. He's going nowhere. And if he does, he has to save up and buy a new car. Just take the car. He's gonna come back for it. He'll work out a deal. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, relax, Mike. Mike's like yelling.
I don't understand. Okay, here's my problem. My problem is, why are we putting this always on the victim versus a trained police officer?
I'm not putting it on the victim. I'm absolutely not putting it. I'm trying to break it down so that everyone sees as many perspectives as it can, as possible. Because obviously, what happened to Walter Scott is atrocious. Yeah. And the cop should absolutely be there for murder. But I like to dissolve a situation in as many perspectives as possible. So my thing is, and I'm trying to get as educated as I can, because first of all, like my brother, I don't know what's going to I mean, God forbid this ever happens or he ever has to deal with this, but I would like to give him some kind of knowledge, like, hey, if this happens, I need you to do this. And I'm learning them by these ridiculous situations that we keep encountering every week at this point. But even for me, if a cop stops me and I'm like, I'm going to start running, I don't know. I just want to know.
You know what, Stacy, the truth is, what you tell your brother is the same thing I told my son. If they pull you over, you put your hand on the steering wheel.
10 and 2.
Wait until they open up the door or tell you to come out. You don't make any sudden moves. You don't go try to reach for anything in your glove compartment or in your armrest. You stand outside the car and you stand very clear and you stand very open. And if they're going to shoot you, they're going to shoot you because you're complying. They're not going to shoot you because all of a sudden you think you got a right that you want to defend right there on the side of a road where they can do anything they want to do to you.
Right.
You just comply. And it's one of the things that we have to send, a message that we have to send to African American men in particular. Please stop resisting.
It's such a crazy... It's such a I think you're right, that is a message that we do need to propel, but also it's such a tired message to say, I felt at risk for my life. It's like, oh my gosh, you all feel at risk?
From a taser? How do you feel at risk? What, do you have a heart condition? You shouldn't be on the streets then.
It's a little
I think that sometimes when they encounter black men, they fear for their lives.
Every one of them? Oh my gosh.
You know what I'm saying? I think that, people perceive people that are passionate to be enraged. People, African Americans, to be enraged. I'm the kind of guy myself. If I raise my voice, if I begin to speak with any degree of intentionality, people sometimes back up.
I do. I'll be hearing I'm ghetto or something.
I get that.
You know what I'm saying? Because they don't understand the passion and the intensity that comes with it. Well, that doesn't mean threat. That means passion.
So if Mike is talking the way he usually talks on the show, which is very passionate,
people get
does somebody?
Toward me. Yes, I've gotten it many times where people are like,
but they don't necessarily.
I have a deep voice too.
I sometimes listen to Mike and say, "Uh-oh, this white boy about to snap," but I don't, because I recognize that it's his passion. A few moments ago, he got passionate about this very story, and you could hear the intensity rise. But if you heard it from a black man, sometimes people wonder, okay, what's he gonna do?
Can I add one more thing to your list, Don, of things? Everyone should download at least an audio recording app so you hit record before. I hate to say that now, but I can't try. Someone told me, they're like, yeah, but who's the first person you're going to call when someone breaks in your house? I'm like, my friend? I'm not calling a cop.
Hell no.
I'm white. I'm not calling a cop. Screw that.
No,
I've seen way too many situations where the cop was supposed to be and shot a dude. Eric Gardner.
Well, you know what? It's interesting. There was this guy, and I think it was in Texas, and this was about 6 or 7 months ago, when the tape came out. Anyway, he was pulled over in the gas station, and he got outside of his pickup truck. The cop approached him and asked him to get his ID. He made an abrupt turn back into the truck.
Yeah, we talked about that.
No, that wasn't in Texas. Stop it.
That was in North Carolina.
It was in North Carolina. Yeah. But I do remember the situation.
Happened in Texas too, Stacy. I know.
Listen, I don't want to go into it.
So that's North Carolina too. But when I saw that videotape for the very first time, my very first reaction was he made a sudden move, and to me, it's like being around a pit bull. You've got to be careful with your moves, because if you make a sudden move, it can be interpreted as something that is threatening. Yeah. And that day, I understood that cop's reflex to shoot. Right. This day, I didn't.
That's the thing. He ran away. I know, okay, so there's the car. Yeah, you could take the car. But also, I would be very confused of why you just started running. I would be if I was the cop, I would have been like, where are you going? What are you about to do? In the same way, not necessarily like, who are you about to kill? That's not what I'd be thinking. I'd be just thinking, why would you start running? So that was my irritation with it. So I'm saying, if the cop wanted to stop Walter Scott, what should he have done? Not what else.
He had a taser on him. How about that? Let's start with the taser that was on his body. Yeah, he had a taser.
Here he goes.
Let's start with, he had a non-lethal thing that's supposed to stop people, as well as pepper spray, they said, is issued. Mm-hmm. So is he just a fat, stereotypical cop that has too many donuts and can't run? So he felt he had to shoot someone dead? Because he had two options right there. And yet his first reaction was to shoot him.
If we take it past that encounter, that dreadful moment when he did shoot him in his back, and he as a result of that, he's deceased. I also have a problem with the other cops that corroborated the story that seems to have not been the truth.
I'm like, but y'all know y'all saw.
Can y'all just say police are now like a gang? They're a mafia. Let's just be honest. They're a tax-funded mafia now.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's crazy.
And there's lots of good cops. Don't get me wrong.
Did we lose Don?
I think.
No, he's on.
Okay.
I'm here. I hear you.
We just got to wrap.
Okay, fair enough. Just to finish up real quick on my point is just how. I don't even want to finish it. It's like, how many times does this have to happen for, like...
Absolutely.
We need some transparency. Yeah. That's what we need. Because right now, we don't even know... I'm just going to bring it up quick. We could probably talk about it later. Right now, as of 2014, there were more African Americans killed by cops than died in the World Trade Center. And that's based off of its conservative statistic.
Mike... You have transparency. That's what this is. That's why you're finding. No. That's why you're finding out about all of these.
Agreed.
Because trust me, This has been going on for the past 30 or 40 years.
Agreed.
You're only finding out about it now because of transparency.
Only some of them. Only the ones that happen to get recorded by some
But that's what
random
I'm saying.
bystander.
It's
But
a
at least we're
process.
closer,
You're
yeah.
It's
getting
not
closer.
transparency. They don't even report. They don't even know in Chicago how many deaths they've had by cops.
I think
because
the-
the way they report the numbers, and they're so jaded, and the paperwork is written so weirdly that they can't figure it out. That's not transparency.
I think this was an amazing, intense, crazy, awesome episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Obviously, we are not done with the argument, so we're going to pick up right here next week on Friday at 7 p.m., so make sure you tune in. I'm your host, Stacy Ike. Where can they find you throughout the week, Mike?
Teemant.com and at Michael Teemant or Michael J. Teemant on Twitter and Instagram.
Okay, awesome. And you guys can check me out on Twitter and Instagram at OneTakeStace. I can't wait to hear from you. Until next time, we will see you next week.
From producers Maria Menounos, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire BHL crew, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us at info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I'm your BHL announcer, Scipio. Instagram me at Planet Scipio. Thank you for tuning in.
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.